will start mock draft 2.0. Here we go. Let's go and start with the first 4 picks of this draft. Put them up there. Cam Ward, quarterback out of Miami. We don't need to break that down. I think that's pretty obvious. The Titans need a quarterback. Cam Ward is the best quarterback in the draft. Travis Hunter, I have him and Abdul Carter swapped from where they were last week. Travis Hunter, cornerback receiver out of Colorado, goes to the Browns. Again, Cleveland, I think, needs to reset the organization in every way, shape, and form. Travis Hunter will be able to help them defensively. I think he'll play receiver. At this point, why are we against him playing wide receiver when he's done it his entire life, when he did it in college football? We've seen Shohei Ohtani in Major League Baseball crush it. I get it's a different sport, playing both positions, or playing, being a pitcher and being an elite offensive force, on the other side. But I think Travis is an unbelievable talent, once in a generation that can do both sides. Travis Hunter, the second pick overall to the Cleveland Browns. Abdul Carter is the best player in the draft. He goes to the Giants. Again, it's a classic, and I think this is how this draft's going to play out: a best player on the board draft as opposed to a fit draft. At least it is in the top 5. At least Giants, one of their few weaknesses, or one of their few strengths, is defensive line. They're an excellent defensive line, but Abdul Carter is not as a monster pass rusher. By the way, he also posted a Lawrence Taylor social media tweet, I think it was, the other day. So Abdul Carter, third pick overall to the New York Giants. Will Campbell to New England Patriots, tackle out of LSU. The number one priority for New England has to be to protect Drake May. He is their number one asset. You can draft receivers later. You got to get a tackle to protect this kid. Those are my first 4 picks. So next 4, Mason Graham was the guy that fell all the way to 15 in this draft to Atlanta, because again, outside of the top 5, once we get past that, I think teams are going to look more towards need as opposed to best player on the board. Mason Graham, okay, defensive tackle out of Michigan, is a monster. He goes to the Jacksonville Jaguars in this draft. Ashton Jeanty, I had him go into the Raiders last draft. I haven't gone to the Raiders this go around. I'll see if that remains the case before 3.0. But again, Pete Carroll, he had his most success when he had a great defense in Seattle, when he had a great running back in Marshawn Lynch. By the way, Pete Carroll had his most success in college at USC with an all-time great college back in Reggie Bush. So I could see him kind of going around that same sort of philosophy. Is Jeanty the first running back off the board, to me, is the question. Right now, it appears that will be the case. Jeanty to the Raiders at number 6. I had the Jets taking Tyler Warren, the tight end out of Penn State. This time I have them going Kelvin Banks. So again, they could draft Shedeur Sanders. I'm not ruling out they draft Shedeur Sanders. They obviously need a quarterback. As I always say, the Jets are the franchise where all young quarterbacks' dreams go to die. Well, the Jets and the Cleveland Browns. But right now, this is Aaron Glenn coming in. He needs to institute a culture. I think he is more than capable of doing that if Woody Johnson doesn't interfere. The offensive line with the Jets has been a disaster for years. It was the number one concern when Aaron Rodgers signed there 2 years ago, when Aaron was still at least closer to his prime than he is now. Kelvin Banks will help shore up that offensive line. Tackle to Texas. He goes number 7. Jalen Walker to the Panthers. I had the Panthers going Jalen Walker last mock draft. Had them going this time. They need some help. They need a pass rusher around the edge. Jalen Walker to Carolina. Here's the interesting part. Shedeur Sanders goes to the Saints. Last mock draft, I had him falling to 21, and my Pittsburgh Steelers. The Derek Carr news changes everything for me, because my mindset is this: okay, for all of the rebuilding that the Saints have to do as it relates to their cap situation, all of it, Derek Carr was at the very least going to be a stabilizing force. Is he great? Not even close. Is he good? Depends on the Sunday. But stabilizing force. Now that he's gone, either the Saints can just dog it, tank Kellen Moore, barring something crazy, and we're all talking about Kellen Moore, so who knows, but Kellen Moore is safe in his job. So they could dog it, tank 2-3 wins, and go out and get Arch Manning, a guy like that, potentially in next year's draft. Or they could decide, I don't know, Shedeur Sanders is used to playing behind less than ideal offensive lines at Colorado. He's used to playing with the supporting cast that is not of the level of a Texas, of an Ohio State, of programs like that, of a Notre Dame. He's used to playing with that, so the Saints should not be that much of an adjustment. I get it's the NFL, but he's deadly accurate. He moves well. The arm strength isn't quite what you'd like, but guess where the Saints play? Indoors, in a dome, in New Orleans. So that's not going to be as much of an issue, certainly for home games. And playing down south, the weather won't be as much of a factor. Shedeur Sanders, I have going to the New Orleans Saints. I have the Bears going Amarian Hampton, running back into North Carolina. I had them going Armand Membo, who I have in the next pick in just a second, to San Francisco. But my mindset is this. Obviously the Bears have needed to address their offensive line for a while. I think they mostly did that in free agency, getting a center, getting Joe Tooney, Amarian Hampton will help solidify a run game that was utterly disastrous last year and was not able to support Caleb Williams over the course of his rookie season. So you give Caleb Williams the weapons that he's got now. You give him an improved offensive line. You give him a guy I think is a brilliant offensive mind in Ben Johnson, and now you give him a running game in Amari Hampton, who, I'll be honest, I think is the best running back in this year's draft. Hampton goes to the Bears. Armand Membo goes to the Niners. Listen, Trent Williams is getting up there in age. If Brock Purdy, it appears, is going to be the long-term future, let's go and protect him as much as we can do so. Membo goes to the 49ers. Tech McMillan to the Cowboys. So, listen, I had the Cowboys going Hampton. To me, the Cowboys offense, I've said since 2022, is not that talented, and it's gotten worse. CeeDee Lamb is an unbelievable talent receiver. He's as productive as they come. That is all they have. Outside of that, offensive line, shambles. Zach Martin just retired. Running game, non-existent. So they could go Hampton. I had the Cowboys going with him in the last mock draft. Or they could, if Hampton's off the board at this point, they could decide to say, let's just go and get a true, 1A type of wide receiver. Think of it as what the Vikings have with Jordan Addison as the 1A to Justin Jefferson's 1. Ted McMillan, best receiver in this year's draft, goes to Dallas at number 12. Next 4 picks, I had Josh Simmons, tackle out of Ohio State, going to the Dolphins. Last mock draft, that remains the case. If there's any quarterback that's a veteran that needs protection, it is Tua Tagovailoa, given his unfortunate injury history. Simmons goes to Miami. Tyler Warren, if there's any team that needs a tight end, is the Indianapolis Colts. Tyler Warren, by far the best tight end in this year's draft, goes to the Colts. James Pierce, just got done talking about the Vols. James Pierce goes to the Atlanta Falcons. Out of, from my favorite team, University of Tennessee, Falcons desperately need help on the pass rush. They've tried to address it in recent years. It hasn't worked. Let's just start fresh. Let's get a absolute speed rush guy around the edge. James Pierce goes to Atlanta. Jedi Barron goes to the Cardinals. They desperately need help in the secondary, to say the very least, as do the Bengals, who go Will Johnson, corner out of Michigan. Again, excellent player. Some people think he could potentially be better than Barron. He goes to the Bengals to help shore up their back end. I think the Seahawks are absolutely going to go wide receiver in this first round to help Sam Darnold out, to pair next to Jackson Smith and Jigba. So why not get a guy from Jackson Smith and Jigba's alma mater? Emeka Egbuka, wide receiver out of Ohio State. Michael Williams, edge out of Georgia, goes to Tampa. Again, another team that needs some help on the defensive line. Jaden Higgins goes to the Broncos. Let's help Bo next. Bo's got the offensive line. Running game isn't ideal. I could see them going with a running back at this spot at number 20, or just waiting until later in the draft to take their guy. This is one of the deeper running back drafts we've had in recent memory. Let's get Jaden Higgins, pair him next to Cortland Sutton. Broncos with Sean Payton could have a really solid offense in 2025. Next 4 picks, my Pittsburgh Steelers go Josh Connerly, tackle out of Oregon. I think the Steelers don't have a quarterback that they like, and just want to put this on the record, do not draft Jackson Dart. I don't believe in him at all. Back to our regularly scheduled programming. If they don't draft quarterback, they have got to get that offensive line fixed. Josh Connerly, tackle out of Oregon, could help do that. Matthew Golden, receiver out of Texas, goes to the Chargers. Again, I think Seattle and the Chargers kind of have to take a receiver in round 1 or 2. Listen, Lam McConkey is excellent, had a really good rookie year. I still see him as more of a number 2 receiver. Get Matthew Golden in there if he pans out the way that we think he possibly could. That could be a really dangerous tandem with Justin Herbert throwing the football. Maxwell Harrison feels like a Green Bay Packers pick, right? Corner out of Kentucky. We remember, same state, different school, Louisville. When the Packers took Jair Alexander out of Louisville, we were like, that's a weird pick. Aaron Rodgers could maybe use some help on the outside. Well, that wasn't necessarily wrong, but Jair Alexander ended up being a really good pick. It's kind of dissolved as of late, but he was an excellent player at his peak in Green Bay. Maxwell Harrison, I'm not saying he'll be as good as Alexander, but that's a pretty Green Bay Packers pick. They've got the weapons on the outside and the run game. They need help defensively. Walter Nolan, defensive tackle out of Ole Miss, goes to the Vikings. Need to shore up the interior on the defensive line. Tyler Booker is a reach. I get it at 25. I understand. But all the great tackles are off the board by this point. At least the guys with a solid first-round grade, a consistent first-round grade across the board. Tyler Booker is a guard out of Alabama. Probably have more of a second-round pick, but again, it's more of a need draft as opposed to best player available. I think the Houston Texans are in a spot where, for reasons I'm not entirely sure, I know there's some reports about showing up late for practice. Laramie Tunsil is one of the premier left tackles in the NFL. You don't just trade that guy. So I did not agree with that decision at all. I get Booker's not a tackle, and he certainly isn't going to provide what Laramie Tunsil does, but they've got to shore that up. And if we know anything, it's that the best offensive lineman tend to go in the first round. Tyler Booker goes to the Texans. Colson Loveland, tight end out of Michigan, goes to the Los Angeles Rams, and what an offense that this could be. So Tyler Higbee's obviously has been a consistent guy, good on third down red zone for the Rams for some time now. That he is 32 years of age. He is getting older. Colson Loveland is the second best tight end in this draft. You pair him now with Devontae Adams, with Puka Nacua, Kyron Williams, Matt Stafford throwing the football. The offensive line for the Rams has been rebuilt over the last couple of years. They could go defense right here with the Rams. That's why I had them going in the last mock draft. But right now, I think Colson Loveland would really, really suit that offense quite well. Shedeur Sanders falls all the way to 27-2. A team that does defense quite well, the Baltimore Ravens. That could be scary, certainly for my Pittsburgh Steelers division, the AFC North, and certainly for the rest of the AFC in general. So Shedeur Sanders goes to the Ravens. Derek Carman goes to the Detroit Lions, defensive tackle out of Oregon. I think the Lions, I don't think any of us would blame them if they just go chalk defense across the board in this draft, maybe take like a running back in the 6th round or something. The Lions are just fine offensively. Defensively is a totally different story. Last 4 picks of the first round. Azareye'h Thomas, corner out of Florida State, goes to Washington. Again, a team that desperately needs help across the board defensively, particularly in the secondary. Pair him up with Marshawn Lattimore. That could be potentially a solid duo with the Commanders. I have Mike Green, edge rusher out of Marshall, going to the Buffalo Bills. Last mock draft, same case here. Again, Von Miller, that didn't work the way that the Bills thought. They thought that it would. If you could give Josh Allen, and this matters for quarterbacks, guy I look up to, Colin Cowherd, has said the number one job of a GM in the NFL: get your quarterback, protect your quarterback, and make the other team's quarterback uncomfortable, which is essentially draft quarterback, draft a left tackle, draft a pass rusher. I think Mike Green could potentially be that guy for the Buffalo Bills. Quinshon Judkins, running back out of Ohio State, goes to the Chiefs. I had the Chiefs taking receiver Matthew Golden last draft, but right now I think for Kansas City, listen, they've tried Isaiah Pacheco, God bless him, but he's had injuries in recent years. They tried the Kareem Hunt thing again. He was fine. He was a good short yardage back. Nothing more than that. Quinshon Judkins has burst. He would work, but again, you're going to need this Chiefs offensive line had questions to begin with, and now Joe Thuney's gone. Now they kept Trey Smith, my man out of Tennessee, but end of the day, this is a kid who could really give this offense some pop, could really give this offense some could give Patrick Mahomes some stability as it pertains to his run game. Quinshon Judkins to the Chiefs, and Jahad Campbell falls all the way to the Philadelphia Eagles, linebacker out of Alabama. That's scary. That is the Eagles are really the only team in this first round that you sit there and say, they don't really have a weakness. Just take the best player on the board at that point at 32. That is my mock draft 2.0. Thanks so much for watching the show on YouTube, and be sure to go click that big red subscribe button and check out the other clips and full shows from Carving It Up Live, as well as our other incredible content creators here on the Grid Network.